Do you consider Silence of the Lamb a true horror film or a thriller?
I think it's both.
Okay, because I've seen that one now twice, and I think that's another exceptional film. I just never think of it to place it there as much.
That's the thing. Is like I just watched this documentary called In Search of Darkness, the '90s, which I help out with these people. They talk about that. What's in a name? What's a thriller? What's a horror film?
Mike Ingold in Fangoria started a column called It's Not a Horror Movie because he got so sick of hearing publicists tell him that their horror movie was not a horror movie, so they're calling it a psychological thriller. It's a drama with horror elements. Anything but a horror movie.
What's that smell?
A horror movie will make this much. A thriller will make this much. So what would you call it? And we do like our categories. So we like to put them in boxes.
Because like you can say, well, Silence of the Lambs is a thriller. Yes, it is a thriller. But it's also a horror movie because you look at Hannibal Lecter. He eats people. The scene at the end of the film, what he does to the cops and the way he spreads them out, that's a horror movie.
That moment is horrifying.
I would argue that the watershed horror thriller of the 90s that influenced most of the movies that came after it is Silence of the Lambs. It's just a masterpiece, and it is inarguably a thriller, and it is inarguably a horror film. I think that you had like a new crop of filmmakers that were taking from that, as well as the studios saying, let's make more of this stuff because, you know, it makes money and we get to go to the Oscars.
He made me do it. He put that thing on me.
I think that studios run away from the idea of a movie being a horror movie. They can run all they want. We know what a horror movie is. The audience feels what a horror movie is.
That's like a slasher horror film at that point in time. So it's both. And the studios like to do this thing with horror because they always like to snub their noses at horror. They love the money they make, but they don't really like to, like, it's beneath them. So like if somebody makes a horror movie or something that becomes like a prestigious movie like Silence of the Lambs or The Shining or something, it's no longer a horror movie to them. It's a thriller. Oh, it's a thriller. So that way they can market it to the masses.
Thriller would be terror. It would be scary. It would make you afraid. It's disturbing maybe. But if you take a thriller and the killer starts cutting people open, well, you've kind of gone over to the horror side, and a lot of people don't want to look at that.
You could go either way with some of these movies, but I do think just the very explicit blood splatter is like what really, in my mind, differentiates horror from like a horrible thriller.
There's a fine line. It's all labeling. You label it as a horror film, it's kind of like bargain basement type stuff. If you say it's a thriller, okay, that elevates it because Hitchcock did thrillers. Yeah.
It's funny, I actually gave this a lot of thought when I made Fever, was what is the difference between a thriller and a horror movie? And why are so many thrillers classifiable horror films? I think Repulsion and The Tenant are two obvious ones that come to mind. I would argue that Psycho is really a thriller underneath it all. And that's what Hitchcock is the master of. He's the master of the suspense thriller. And he's made one of the all-time great horror films. So I think Psycho is your litmus test, right? Because you could look at it as either.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, if Silence of the Lambs, see, that's another great one then. So I discovered I like that. That one's kind of more on level of The Shining. They keep things very serious.
Yeah.
As far as that, I mean, The Shining's more chaotic and you don't know what's going on, but Silence of the Lambs, obviously he does such a phenomenal job and gets recognized for that, you know, all the time. But what caught my attention the first time I watched Silence of the Lamb was her role, was Clarice, because especially in today's time where we've had so many really bad female characters, she's an exceptionally written character.
There obviously is some congruence between horror and thriller, that it's terrifying, that it's horrific, that it's scary. Those are the elements that bridge thriller and horror.
Yo, lady of the house, we're coming in. You just got to decide whether he's coming with us, and fast.
To me, horror is an emotion. Is home invasion horror for you? Because it is for me. Is Breakdown a horror movie? For me, it is. It's the worst thing I can think of. But it's also easy to call Breakdown a thriller or a drama or an action movie. But I watch Breakdown and I have anxiety. I mean, it scares me more than vampires do. So I think horror has to be a label that we each define for ourselves. What you think is horror and what I think is horror might not be the same thing, but we're both right.
And I love how it's like, she's almost like, well, she really is like a lamb led to the slaughter, basically. Yes. Because from the very beginning, the FBI is just using her as an attractive young woman. Mm-hmm. But yet he picks up that they're doing that, and he kind of takes a liking towards her. Yeah. But in every situation, it's like this belittling. The scene when she walks in and, you know, sees him for the first time, you know, and that something is thrown at her, you know, it's just like everything in it, she is so belittled. Mm-hmm. And then for her to kind of, you know, seize the moment at the end with his help in some regard.
Yeah. Horror is all about a visceral response. I think Fatal Attraction was what woke the studios up to how much money there could be made by letting someone go batshit crazy. In the guise of something that seemed a little bit more suburban friendly to the couples who just wanted to go see a film after a hard day's work. And that ushered in a lot of films like Fatal Attraction through the 90s. We got them over and over and over again.
But yeah, that's an exceptional character, which leads me, I think, to something I probably discovered I did is, like I said, in an era where there's so many crappy female characters, horror films have like all the good ones.
Exactly. That's something I often get frustrated with myself as well, is because like you mentioned, you hear so much nowadays is we don't have strong female heroines and we got to do this. And it's like, I'm a man. And I've been watching horror movies since, like you said, you were 6 years old. You couldn't watch Scream. I've been watching them since I was 6 years old, and I shouldn't have. But like, I've been watching these women kick the crap out of 6 foot big monster guys and winning, and I'm rooting for them. I never once do I feel like, she's a woman. She's going like, why does she get to win? Never once do I ever feel that way watching this, right? I think that's another thing, like we mentioned, where the studios look down on horror is like, they don't look at these women as like heroes, because they're often...
No, they don't.
They don't, because like, yes, there is nudity and some exploitation.
Yes, okay.
Yes, there's exploitation in horror films, but I think that leads to what people seeing, because they know it's something they're not supposed to be seeing. I think that leads to exploitation, leads to the scariness of it, the horror of it, because you know this is bad. You know you shouldn't be seeing these women and these guys doing these things, and you know something bad, like that's like the rules, like you mentioned. Yes. Screen, like never have, you know, because that's a big no-no, because that's like purity thing. You're not supposed to do that, and bad things happen. So yes,
don't do drugs.
Yeah, don't do drugs. Like, that's part of these horror movies, but like these women overcome that and they fight back, and usually it is the purest of them all. That, you know, it's basically good versus evil.
The great thing about horror is that it always remains undefinable. Trying to define exactly what horror is nailing Jell-O to the wall. In a lot of ways, it refuses to get squeezed into a box, and as fast as you've done that, it's starting to leak out all over the place. And I think that's something to be celebrated.
Oh my.
A thriller, a horror film, monster movie, you call it whatever you want to. The movie business, that's all geared to money. They've decided that that's the best way to sell a movie. So they're changing it to thriller. Maybe the next year it's back to horror. It doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless.